Hello. So how's the audio seems to be working? I will go check that shite out. So here's the thing. I just spent a half an hour trying to get ManyCam to work so that I could feed through. God only knows. But, I thought, oh, I have 15 minutes early. I'll try to do that. But that doesn't work. So what we're doing here, my brain's a little spent. I got a little extra work on the side for another company doing consulting about this stuff that's just awesome. I mean, it's stuff we have to take the curvature of Earth into account and line of sight. And, I just looked this up today. Did you know every mile away, there's 8 inches of curvature, right? And so if you were to shoot a laser beam through the curve, a secant through the Earth, only a mile away, it would come out. It'd be 8 inches in the middle. 8 inches. That's a lot. Adds up quick. It's not very far away, the horizon. So first we'll go to the YouTube. So I didn't get the audio working. ManyCam is okay. Would be great. I'm sure I'll get it working in the future. Well, maybe not. Sometimes the Google plugins just don't want to work with things like that. But it let me select it. So that's working. It let me select, it didn't let me select the ManyCam video source, but it was listed there in the advanced settings, but then it wouldn't. But I stopped Google. I think if I stopped Google enough times and restart ManyCam and things like that, I could get it to work. But 15 minutes in, I figured, okay, so I'm going to put the link first in the chat, the link, and then I'll put it in the description. And I was trying to watch Gary's response to me, but it's more of the same. It's like, your nonsense words. I'm not going to learn your words just to talk to you about things for 10 years. Yeah, it's lazy. I didn't say it made you wrong, Gary. I said it made you lazy. What's up? Yeah, I'm gonna put out these links and then take a quick break, but is it not over there? There you go. All right. To the sound of music. Where else do I usually put the link? Google Plus? Is that a thing? Yeah, I guess I'll do Google Plus. That's necessary anymore. It used to be integrated. Now you can't even type it in until after. Maybe I can actually in events. What the hell? Oh, all kinds of weird shit from letting you weirdos in my group. Okay. That, and the other. Okay, now I'm here. I'm gonna see if anybody's shown up early. Is already there. Looks pretty live. Okay. Not much of a delay, I mean, today. Oh, this is ridiculous. Let's see. How about like that? Okay. All right. So the stuff is posted. I will be right back because I'm going to get a second beer. Because I'm only drinking on the weekends now, and even then, no, because I worked, what did I work yesterday? 5 hours yesterday, and today I worked 5 hours. And alcohol does not mix with programming. So, Alrighty, I'll be right back. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette too, and basically I blew my timing, trying to get my timing better. It was pretty good. I quit working around 8:30, and then I'm like, yeah. I played a video game for 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, 15 minutes, great, no problem. Only takes about 5 minutes to actually set it up. Oh, I'll do the mini cam thing, and then we can all watch Gary's latest video to me, because it's hard to watch. And I kind of want to, but boy, I know it's hard for him too, but he's making it harder. It's like, well, if you want to call people names, then that's what it is. Every time you get a video, it's, yay, somebody's talking to me and they're going to call me a bunch of names. Yeah, it goes both ways. But I called you so many names, I thought you'd stop. Okay, I'll be right back. By the way, it's open right now. In other words, your mic would work when you come in. It is alive, the sound of music. Kitty in the beds. Kitty.
I'm glad you're coming with. We should bring the shovel with in case we have to shovel dirt on it.
Yeah, you should make that kit on that piece of paper. That's a job for you. It's important. Yeah.
Are you gonna do the shovel?
Do it right now. Right now.
I'm gonna go do laundry.
Okay. All right. Wait. The office is a mess because I just built this machine over here. So I've been doing that. Okay, I'm going to change the permissions. All right, so the thing with Gary, not the video he just did, but I was thinking of something else just now about Gary's position. You know, Gary was making this video about about Brett Keane and stuff. He was talking about Jesus Freak's kid and like how he's not even asking for money because of some orphan or some extra thing, and you know he's being altruistic and he's asking for help with that, but it's for his own kid whose ramifications are on him, so to speak. But Gary doesn't want immigrants over here because they'll lead up to social services, but people here in the United States are using those social services, and isn't that like our own family using them? That's okay. No, it'd be better, right? Because I'm for social services, and yet if you want to make a comparison, I think refugees from Aleppo need those deserve that. I would be happier to give them actual charity to them, whereas for Americans I would rather give opportunity, you know, work programs and various social systems that are not just like, Jesus, you've had it hard, why don't you relax for a bit and we'll take care of this shit for a couple of years. I would rather do that for people from war-torn areas. And if they have a lot of PTSD and it makes them have problems that we then deal with, I'd rather help deal with that than people that just decided to flake out of society, right? If there is such a thing. And so I think that's hypocritical of Gary on the social immigration issue, that supposedly it's okay to stand tall with your own kind, basically. You know, there's some shady things to Gary's thing. On the other hand, I'm happy to discuss things further with Gary if he's not going to say that I don't actually believe my criticisms, that I have decided to take the weaker side of the argument just for fun. Now I'm playing a game to try to do that. Now I try to take the strongest side of the argument, and when somebody convinces me there's a stronger side than what I believe, I'll switch to that. Like with Casino McCool, and I decided, yeah, pi is absolutely just as much a number as the number 2. Doesn't matter, it takes infinite digits to describe it with digits. It takes just one digit if you use the pi symbol. So I changed my position. But it's usually going to be at that level. I think things through pretty deep. So just saying your gut, the math will work out, you know, no. Now, it's still hard to watch Gary's video, and he said it was hard to watch mine because, you know, you're going to get a lot of snarky insults because what else am I supposed to do? I'm replying to snarky insults, right? When I have terms that are like, these terms mean some things, maybe you can tell me what cross-section, how does this term intersect with your system? You could give me some information, you refuse. That's lazy, right? And it's not wiggle magic words. You could say, well, that term is inconsistent. It doesn't make sense because da-da-da, but you're going, I don't want to learn it. And he was like, why would I present this pilot wave theory when I don't believe it? Just a waste of time. You and I disagreed, Gary. Why would I even listen to your nonsense if I was just looking for things that were true? I'm looking for the possibility of truth, or a grain of truth, a diamond in the rough, a little tiny aspect of truth. Because the answer to your question, you see, is I'm a skeptic, meaning we're learning things. We never figure out everything about a particular topic. We keep looking into it. Okay, we keep looking into it, and that's why if I see a strong visualization of a competitive theory, I am happy to present that. And the people that believe it can then double down on that, and this is a way that I might become convinced by it. So there's definitely something appealing to the idea that the photon really does just go through the one slit or the other. But then, with that being so appealing, I would caution people from adopting it because it's not like it's not weird. And this is above Gary's head, so I'll just talk to the rest of you. The beauty of the pilot wave making it the electron or the photon, a real thing, concrete. And that's another thing. Gary's reaction is so juvenile. Here's the word concrete. He says, it's not concrete. Concrete's not sandpaper. Concrete is a concrete. Concrete is a logical term, right? Meaning that it's localized and touchable, basically, by metaphor. Okay? As opposed to something like love that's not thought of as concrete. If there's a concrete part of love, it's the neurochemical pattern in the brain, not the love itself. Right now, as a materialist, I believe everything is somewhat concrete. There's some concrete aspect to everything. But the thing itself is not what we would traditionally think of as concrete, because we're not saying love is concrete. We're saying the brain is concrete, and it has a phenomena we call love. The love itself is not a substance or something that has concrete nature. Gary goes off about concrete, build buildings. That's, fucking juvenile. And you're going to insult me. Am I supposed to continue for another 10 years to be polite to your insults when you say the most ludicrously juvenile things? I don't think so. But anyway, okay, so the part that's over Gary's head is the thing is, so the particle would just go through one slit or another with the pilot wave, but the problem with the pilot wave, the weirdness with the pilot wave here, is that it's like a standing wave, right? It's not rippling out, it's already there vibrating throughout the whole universe, right? It's vibrating at the screen and vibrating at the laser or the electron gun. And it's riding this thing that's already there. So in other words, the destination in the future is sort of already taken care of. And this leads to things where you could transfer information, faster than the speed of light or back in time and stuff. And that's kind of unpalatable in a different sense. So you get the concrete, real nature of the particle. And that was another thing, superposition. Mentioned superposition. Gary talks about the superposition of forces like gravity. And now when he sees this, he'll go, but gravity isn't a thing. It's just not the ton of the ton. Yeah, change the subject, Gary. Change it quick. That's not what we're talking about superposition. We're talking about quantum superposition, where a particle would be in more than one state at once, contradictory states, like its magnetism is this way or its magnetism is this way, both at once. That kind of superposition, remember, that you disagree with, but you can't listen long enough to go, oh yeah, that. I do disagree with that. That's why I was pointing out the pilot theory, and I had mentioned you in the video, because some of the things in the pilot theory address your concerns. But the problem is, with you're saying your system's going to fit the current math and be better, which is what it would have to do. But from the current math, we already know certain things about solutions that are prohibited, solutions that won't work. So for example, you can't have a pilot wave theory without hidden variables, right? And this potentiality of faster than light travel. You lose locality. In other words, a particle here can affect one way far away. Gary doesn't know it, but he wants locality and this realism rejection of superposition, quantum superposition. And that's what's been proved you can't do. He also doesn't want hidden variables, which it's also proved that if you're going to have a non-local pilot wave version, there's got to be hidden variables that you can't find out what those values are, much less the process that produces them. You will never have a test to do that. And that's severe because a lot of things in quantum mechanics they thought we'd never have a test for. Well, we're making better and better devices and tunneling microscope. We're using the phenomena of quantum mechanics itself to improve our ability to do things like, um, image at the atomic scale and stuff. And yet this is different. A hidden variable truly is fundamentally hidden, and it has to be hidden. And that's what leads to the appearance of randomness in a world that has no randomness, which, as I was saying, is functionally equivalent for us human beings as there being randomness. There's no difference for a human being between randomness being the way you think of as randomness or the equivalent in nature, right? And the many worlds of interpretation, the many histories, is also not random. It says that finite exact things happen. It's just that there is a kind of superposition or kind of many histories where everything possible happens. When you roll the dice, it turns up in every version of the roll turns up, right? Every combination of dice turns up, right? And the issue with this always, of course, is how come we just see one version of the dice show up? Well, because we're in the middle of a process and the line we're taking through the process is showing that one, and over here are the other values. And that's how you get the multidimensionality. Another thing is Anna Kanavad made this really annoying skeptical video about, well, how do you know which is up and which is down and who would choose? And it's like, dude, yeah, we know that problem. That's an ancient problem. We address that. Because here's the thing. Yeah, up could be down could be up. You could call up flubel and call down dabble. You could have left be up and right be down, and left and could be the opposite of down, and you could do any of those because those are just words. But what comes out of this then? Oh my God, I guess there's no dimensionality comes out of it. On a coordinate system, a flat coordinate system, I can use Cartesian coordinates, x and y, but which way would x point? Which way would y point? Or I could use theta and r, an angle and a radius distance to locate that point. But where would the theta equals 0 be put? And where is the origin point you're measuring from? It could go anywhere. So it's all doesn't matter. No, there's some concreteness here because here's the thing. To parameterize a two-dimensional space requires two free variables, right? And yeah, it doesn't matter the angle of the axes or anything. There's an infinite number of ways to break down that coordinate system so that you can feed two coordinates into it and get a point. But guess what? There is no system where you can feed in just one free variable and identify any point, right? That can't be done. You need two. And that's where dimensionality comes from. And it reminds me of an old complaint about skeptics that if a skeptic was equally distant between two pots of water, bowls of water, pitchers of water, and slowly dying of thirst, they would die of thirst because they would not have a way to decide which one was better to go to, which is so silly because it's the people that think they will only do the smartest thing that would get stuck in a situation like that. It would be quite clear to a skeptic that it doesn't matter which I go to because the resources it's going to cost me is the most, and one could be chosen at random. And as far as, but nothing's random, so they would be, well, no, whatever you think of randomness, at the point in time, the moment where you realize it doesn't really matter which I go to, whichever one you're looking at that moment, you probably go to that one. Or you flip a coin. You could deduce that a random choice is better than no choice. Human beings are incredibly, incredibly, incredibly prideful to think that they always make the most rational choice. It's like, I've got this information. I always choose the best option given that information. Yet I watch how people process information, and it's amazing. They get out of their fucking house and down the road to get their shit done. They definitely do not take all the facts that they know, and they don't know all the facts that are available to them either. It's obvious. I mean, I think I'm smart and I could see that, no, you're making a lot of estimates and guesses to get through life and make decisions. And thus, there is a stochastic random bubbling that prevents you from ever being equidistant, truly, between two pitchers of water, because you're pointed at one. Or when you finally have the thought that it doesn't matter, you've turned around a bit and you're a couple inches closer to the other one. You're not staying still while you're thinking about it, but you're putting, the equivalent of randomness into, if you start off equidistant, you're not going to be equidistant a few minutes later, no matter what. You're going to have moved around a little bit. And if you really seriously want to go to the closest one, then you'll take your random motion, it's put you a little bit closer to the other one, and then that's the one you'll go to. But on a Canavad is acting like, geez, we don't know which one to call up and which one to call down. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there's two free variables. And in fact, you don't need up and down. What you need is up and left. Down could be negative up, and right can be negative left. Because all you really need is two parameters. You need one parameter per dimension. And it's not like a definition of how many parameters do you need. No, it's the definition of dimensions. If you have a space that, let's say you describe it with 5 coordinates, but it turns out some of the coordinates, overlap, as will happen if you have like a Cartesian thing, but instead of the axes being like this, if one axis was like this, then when you have X, it changes your Y, but you could have another coordinate to adjust for that puts it back down where it should be and whatnot. So you could have 6 or 7 coordinates, and they all come down and define your one point in a 2D space. But because of the mathematics of dimensionality, you could reduce that down. If you fix and make your coordinates orthogonal and clean in your multidimensional space, then you will always need no less than some number of variables, and that's the dimensionality of that space. And we're not stuck in the middle of, well, I can't decide whether it's up or down, so I'll just say I don't know anything. But when I'm talking about going upstairs, I still say up. That's convenient. But you're a philosopher, so you have to admit you are actually using the rules you're saying can't be used. And it's really just because, Gary's onto something that there's a cop-out nature to this. This is not the natural skeptic thing. This is somebody that is exerting. You didn't just drop to this potential of, none of this stuff is real. You're actually pushing towards it. Yeah, you use up and down and left and right, but they don't mean anything. Yeah, they do, right? You say, what about up and down? It doesn't matter, right? A French person has a different word for up and down, and we can map back and forth really quickly. You know why? Because dimensionality is real. Relativity is how we answer this. Here's 2 points. Does it matter if you visualize the point as having this slope, or maybe the slope's 0, or it's like this? No, it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want, right? But is there motivation to do one or the other? Yeah. Yeah, let's say you want to use polar coordinates. That's where you have the angle and a radius, and you got a circle. Where do I put the origin? Well, if you put the origin out here and the angles go like this around the circle, and the radius goes, it actually goes like this. That's complicated. That's actually really complicated. I've done that before, and it's surprisingly complicated. Whereas if the origin is in the middle of the circle, right in the middle, then a circle is just r equals 6. That's a circle of radius 6 around the origin. If the origin's over here, it gets really complicated. So why do we put it in the middle? No, not because God said it should be there, not because it's absolutely right. No, move it. You could be a person that says, well, I want to put it over here. I did that. I put it over here because I wanted to see what that equation looked like in polar coordinates. I found out some weird things when I was doing that too. There's certain shapes you can't really put in polar coordinates, like I think arctangent and stuff. So when we put it in the center, it's for a particular problem that we did on Tuesday, right? Okay, in north and south are very interesting ones because they've changed a lot and they're actually different right now. I'm working in GIS data, which I really love. But the Earth is modeled as an ellipsoid, but not just one ellipsoid. There's a lot of different optional ones because different ellipsoids touch the surface of and the world's actually lumpy. It's not a perfect ellipsoid. So different ellipsoids have developed over the years for historic reasons, but even as they got really accurate, some people would want one ellipsoid and some people want another. And then on top of that, there's all these flat projections that are like planes papered all over the globe. So you can stretch the curved Earth flat and do flat kind of mathematics on it. Which, by the way, I was thinking about, so funny, the flat Earth, because working with satellite data of Earth and doing the math, and like I debugged a problem where this shape that was supposed to be exactly on the size of a field on Earth would be shifted. They get shifted. And it was because the math was being done wrong. It was actually an integer math kind of problem with the pixels and whatnot. And so to correct that, you have to do the math more carefully. And doing the math more carefully is 100% about taking into effect the curvature of the Earth. And today, this consulting I'm doing is also GIS related. And so this is important to them. So I was looking this up. Did I mention this just earlier? Yeah. So a mile apart, 2 points a mile apart from each other on the Earth bulge in the middle is 8 fucking inches. That's a lot, right? So every mile you got 8 inches. So you go 100 miles, and the reason you can't see 100 miles is not just the fog in the air, but you got 150 feet of Earth bulge between those 2 points, right? And they're paying us to take care of it. If it's all a hoax, then there's no way people are that competent. So that's kind of interesting, because also this is all open source software. If any, I think anybody with a mathematical background that's in the Flat Earth Society is in it for the lulz, because they've done some great mapping. I love their map of, hey, Earl, you should come on in. So they've done these beautiful maps. Actually, let me show you the map. So the idea in this map is it's like a conic projection. It looks like a conic projection, except for those are never fanned all the way closed, where the North Pole is this icy place in the center. And then Antarctica is actually a ring of icy mountains, 150 feet high, which is awesome. How cool of an Earth would this be? It'd be great. And it's a very interesting phenomenon too, in that it was kind of a hoax and tongue in cheek and various stuff. Once they put up Sputnik and stuff, but like through the 70s and 80s, it was pretty much seems satirical. But more than that, and we see unfolding now, is that people like these things because, like Gary, the way they make them feel solid, then it must be real, and then they'll work backwards to explain. So they've gotten really sophisticated. It's 21st century, and it looks to me like some of these maps have had math applied. These are not hand-drawn maps. Somebody has used GIS software to do a conic projection to create an Earth of this shape. Let me show. And they have a spotlight sun. God, I love that. Flat Earth images. Okay. So I guess that's as big as it gets. So that to me looks like somebody used some honest to goodness map projection software to do a 360-degree conic projection of the Earth. And anybody that could possibly do that, which is something I'm going to do, by the way. I thought this would be a fun exercise. Anybody that could do that would know enough to prove to themselves easily with their own observations or with a laser, right? Because with the laser, there's 8 inches a mile away, and you can see lasers a mile away, some of them. And so you could test that, right? So somebody's in on the hoax. Now, I was thinking it'd be fun to have a virtual world, make a map server that is the flat Earth, and people could, like populate it. Because I think like Ring World, it's one of the coolest sci-fi Earth ideas ever. And also, the lulls are intense. Like, if you go to the Flat Earth Society, they're like, "What's below the Earth? Probably rocks." And they at their website, they show some curiosity as to what is past the edge of the wall, which is something that NASA guards, the edge of the ice wall. God only knows what's over there. They're protecting us. But it makes them feel centered. And it makes them feel, I saw Stephen Mullen, who talked with the guy who had the best explanation, because in the end he was honestly talking about, well, look, it makes you feel special again, right? If a meteor comes and hits the Earth and it's a special disk, it's not just one little piece of sand in the universe, but it's the center of the universe, like originally thought. See, that's really what it's about. It's really about a geocentric idea. And if a meteor comes and hits the Earth, it seems more like fate. Even though you could die just as dead, you're special, and it does indeed feel special. I think if to write a story in this world would be, or in a world like this, it would automatically be fantasy. There's going to be something very fantasy about it, like with Game of Thrones, how the seasons aren't all just 1 year or anything. As a matter of fact, maybe this is what's going on in the Game of Thrones. Maybe this is why summer is, in the Game of Thrones, you don't have one season per year. Instead, it's like the summer could be 5 years or 1 year or 10 years. People tell legends of that someday there'll be a really forever summer, and then they tell stories about when there was 100-year winter. And I've been thinking, like, well, what kind of cosmology could you invent to explain that? Now, and this is such a cosmology. In this cosmology, you don't have to deal with gravity, because it's really just that the Earth is flying upward, accelerating at the speed of gravity. There is no gravity. And so you get to do whatever you want with that part, and then stuff just has to make mathematical sense a little bit. And what they're saying doesn't make sense. You could tell we're on a spherical Earth. However, if it really was a flat Earth, you could sort of build a system like they have. And because what's going on is the sun is going around the North Pole. It's just a few thousand miles above the Earth. It's going around the North Pole, they say. So in the winter, it's making a bigger circle further away from the North Pole. And in the summer, it's narrowing in, right? And then it's going out and then going back in. And if it took more than, a year for it to come back to where it started, if there was some randomness in it, if the sun god that was pulling the sun behind the sun flashlight spotlight behind his chariot were a little drunk, it wouldn't be consistent. My other theory, by the way, for that is, well, what if they're in a system with more than one sun, so that they have a kind of an irregular orbit that pulls the suns closer and further away in a kind of complicated, hard to calculate manner. So there's that. Okay, there's also my fucking lake froze, and that was cool. And after it froze, so I forget if I followed up. So there was the ice sheets going around. That was just a couple days. Then what happened? I thought that was going to continue, and then it clog up, and slowly the broken ice would freeze. Still could happen that way, I think, some year, but probably more likely what happened now. We had a cold night. The whole thing froze about a little bit less than an inch thick. You could throw a rock really hard and break a hole in the ice, but the rock wouldn't even go through. It would just bounce off and make a little hole in the ice. And the sound of the rocks was fucking amazing. You throw these rocks, and if you've ever hit the kind of metal cable that holds up a telephone pole with like a stick or even a rock, you can do it with wood or stuff, but it's much better like with a metal stick. You go boom, and it makes this sound. That's what it's like. You threw the rock out there, and when it hit the ice, it was totally this as it bounced along. fucking awesome. Then it snowed on there, and you can't really throw the rocks. Now, the funny thing there is that actually insulated the lake, and what happened after it snowed on it is water, little spouts of water, little lines of water broke up all over and making these ice road looking things where, you know, it melted and turned the snow into ice and just all over the lake. Where the water, because what happens, I was reading up on this, the snow actually insulates the water from the cold air, because we were having like 10-degree temperature or something after this. It just got up to freezing today, but it's been like 10. It's in the daytime for a couple days, and it was 20 before that, and there was like a week of just barely below freezing. Okay, so the snow, 3 inches, 4 inches of snow actually protects the lake. The water underneath the ice is still whatever it is, 40 degrees, 35, I don't know, something. It's not frozen yet. And it gives that a chance to work away at it. And so the water broke up, and you have a little, even though it's been below freezing for 2 weeks now, or a week and a half, you got running liquid water on the lake ice. Because also I'm thinking, well, that snow is heavy. It adds up, right? When you're shoveling, you can, you know, it really is heavy. And so to have all of that on the ice, and the ice is ultimately floating, so it squishes on the water. So then there's pressure underneath, and that water is above freezing. So it manages to eat its way through, kind of like you see in the Arctic, if you ever watch, like how those rivers on glaciers run along and make these roaring rivers and drip through the ice, and eventually they'll have this vertical drop that's just carved out by the running ice water. Lovely stuff. Got that in miniature. So it looks strong enough to walk on, but of course I'm not. I'm going to go from the Lake Association saying when you can walk on the other hand, I really want to walk out on it. I've been on it before because my sister-in-law already lived on this house, so we've been out there from when we moved here. I just went once, I think, maybe twice. And but that's going to be cool, being able to walk out where I boated from. It's going to be trippy. So my main goal of life is coming true at the moment of never having to, you know, I want to live and work in the woods, be hooked into cyberspace, and then ideally never have to leave my land. I've been saying leave my house, but that gives the wrong idea. I love to go outside of my house. I have an acre. I'm allowed to go all over the lake, though right now it's a little hard. And so I just don't want to go into civilization with all the people. I mean, that's fucked up. So, okay, let me see. That's a good time to double check my sounds work. Seems like it's been working from my little meter there. And yeah. All right, so let's see. So that's been 45 minutes. Earl came in and said, best hangout ever. But you don't come in. I don't understand why you don't come in, Earl. What's the problem, Earl? Earl probably knows he's probably uncomfortable because of my great respect I've shown for him. And it's just certain things, Earl. You don't have anything to live up to with me. I understand you. I see how you spend your time. Just think you're one of the world's best tall tellers. And also you're pretty good on the whole praise dog religion. You got that down. You know, the dog will lead you. Dogs will lead you, and your heart must follow. Sounds absurd to some and hard to swallow, but dogs will lead you. Your brain should follow. Sounds like a good idea for today and tomorrow. So, okay. Well, I have given all the information to get in here. Did I? Yes. And it's the correct information. And you could always be in the chat telling me otherwise. So I worked really hard today, and I got to get to bed fairly early. And if I do this room till 12, I pretty much have to go to bed right away by 12:30. If I go to bed at 12, I'll read or something. I just, play video. It'll be 1. And if I go to bed later than 1, it'll be a problem because I got a bunch of stuff to do. Because this company, so I'm doing corp to corp, right? Which it's funny how people, like some people are like, still doing your contracting or did you get a job? It's like, why would you want a job? I applied to one company because I had this idea. Oh, well, I will come and help them here in Maine do better computing. Yes, indeed. That's what I will do, and I will help and be codependent for the rest of. Anyway, that didn't work out too good, right? But everybody else, everything else, I want contracts. You know, like I had one. I've been applying to what I consider special companies, right? So there were some open source companies that are billion-dollar profitable companies that I've applied to. And I almost got a job at one of them. They were like about to give me the offer, and then they send me an email. It's like, they decided to bring the team in-house. Because see, this company has just switched over from being a public company where it got bought and made private again. Some investors, they don't like the remote work thing. So working for an employee, what if I had gotten that job and then that happened a couple months later? Well, if it's a contract, it's like, oh, I guess the contract's over. Nice to know you. Why would you want, you make more as a contractor. And the idea of being an employee of being better is because it's supposed to be more of a sure thing, right? They're supposed to stand by you. If times get tough, they don't just fire you, they tighten their belt and you know, that doesn't happen anymore. This lay the fuck you off. And the fact of the matter is the work that still has to get done when they cut their employees, they're going to hire contractors. And I don't like that W-2 kind of contracting. That's bullshit. But 1099 corp to corp, fucking fantastic. I don't need you to pay me for vacation. If you pay me well when I'm working for you. And frankly, I don't want you to keep me working for you when you're not sure if I'm very productive anymore. Fuck that. So just do it corp to corp. As soon as you think you're not getting your money's worth, let me go. And so I'm really happy because I've hooked up with this company. At least 3 years, I've always got my own contracts. It's just been a couple because I have had repeat and long customers. So, but I worked one through a middleman contractor. I think I mentioned that before, and they did shit all, for the system. They just take their cut. They get you the job, like doing the sales, and then they take their cut. But this one, no, they have these Slack channels, and they go ahead and pay us hours for doing things like having the developer meetings where we tell each other stuff. They'll pay for some hours for you to do pro bono work. They actually make sure they do the part where they make sure the engineers are good so that when people come to them, they're sure they're going to get good engineers. And as a result, they have fucking awesome contracts, including like in the game industry, which is very difficult. You know what I mean? They don't just hire seat warmers because sometimes a lot of these contract middlemen, it's like we got another in the budget for a DB admin. And when we get him, I will manage 18 people instead of 17. It's like they're not really concerned or clear with what. They just have this idea of everybody says you're so hard work, then they finally get someone else. And it's not very rigorously sourced. But that's not the case with this company and these clients. These are like, they really want to get real things done. It's really got to happen. And so yeah, that's awesome. So I got one full-time gig for them that should go like 8 months. And then instead of, it takes me like 3 months to get a job. And with them, the cut I give them out of my salary or my fee, my hourly fee, my rate, is well worth it because because when I'm working for work, I work like 80 fucking hours a week. I mean, I have about 6 to 10 hours of writing cover letters and looking for jobs and researching companies to see if I even want to work there. And then I'll work another, 8 hours a day on my own projects because I feel like, well, that's really the main time that I got to develop my own project. And that's another thing about being a regular employee. Every time I've been a regular employee, which most of my career, I have to sign a non-compete clause. It's like you are not allowed to do something else for money, even on your own time. It's like, what? How's that okay for you to say? And people just ignore it, but I'm the kind of person I'd rather not ignore it. I'd rather follow the rules. I just think it's ridiculous. So anyway, I spent all of that time. So if I don't have to do that for 3 months, then because it's not like I'm relaxing and get a vacation for 3 months. However, with these guys looking for work, when I finish one job, if I do want to take a vacation for a couple weeks or a month, and I can afford to go without the money, then I could just do that, and I wouldn't be wasting my time because they'd be looking for work. So yeah, hopefully this will be a long pod, because this is really, and they're fully remote people all over the world. I work with this guy in Colombia. He lives down there because his wife's a diplomat for the U.S. government, so they live and move all over. He can work from down there, and just all over Canada. And I think they might have people pretty much all over the world, but it's mostly Canada and some South America, and U.S. people all over the U.S. So I mean, I'm working on a team, so there's a client and there's this middleman company, so it's corp to corp to corp, and there's people just work with people in Denver and Utah, New York. Where else was the other one? Seattle. You don't even know where people are from. So that's cool. So I got some extra work from them on a side contract because of some stuff that I put in, that I have in my skill set. And I was like, I'm not sure, if it's within my scope, but I did it, and it turns out it is really useful. Turns out, even though I only have a couple years of GIS knowledge, that's really enough exposure to all the tools to get on over the speed bump of how all of that stuff works. And it's really beautiful mathematics, geographic projections. It's just lovely. And shit tons of data. Just downloaded like 50 gigs of data that I'm going to play with and do a test. And I love having to do that. So that's great. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, but my astronomy experience comes in handy because in astronomy, you do all sorts of weird things with coordinate systems. Like, you can have a coordinate system, you have to adjust it for spatial deformities on the chip. And you can have a coordinate system where one of the dimensions, you can have I've worked with 4 and 6 dimensional data where, you might have a dimension that's wavelength, right? Like one axis is wavelength and another is distance, is the x-axis or whatever. Or you can have 3 and 4 dimensional data, like I said. So, and then you have to do transformations between coordinate systems. And having 20 years experience with that, turns out, does make it easier for me to learn things about GIS, which is the same kind of stuff. Except for in astronomy, there's a weird thing that even though there's a celestial sphere, the images are still considered mathematically flat because everything's far enough away that it's flat. So it's like you take a picture of a section of a cube. When you do that of the Earth, you got a curved surface. When you do it in space, it's still a flat surface. So you don't really have to, you don't ever deal with removing or adding curvature in those images because they're just not big enough for that to be an issue. But in principle, and in really big images, it is an issue. And so it turns out it's basically the same kind of math, and all you're missing to do the GIS stuff is all the history of the GIS conventions, GIS being the geoinformations, right? And so, yeah, that's really fortunate. I was really happy when I got to do some of that kind of work for my first client when I started contracting. And now both my full-time one and the side contract are involving it, and that's great. And I think there's a huge future in that as well. Everything's being geotagged now, and the math is confusing to a lot of people, like to Gary. It would confuse Gary very much, for example. All right, that's a long video even for me. I know these years I make 30-minute, 40-minute videos, partly because I don't just I end up making, if I take my notes, I'll have a whole page worth, and I used to, it's like once I had 10 minutes worth of stuff, I'd make one video. So, but on the other hand, it was pretty long for me. It's coming on, it's about 50 minutes now. So it's that point where people have to come in if you want to talk about something. Otherwise, I'm going to go probably play Minecraft, or maybe I have some post-gist stuff I wanted to play with. plus I was thinking of doing some unbilled time. I took 4 hours to download this, what I say, 50 gig of data, elevation data and stuff from the USGS. And I was thinking of not billing my client to just play with it and look at it because I'm super eager to look at what it looks like. And yeah, I'm going to set up an OpenStreetMap server, and maybe I'll share that with you guys. I was thinking of setting up a little game based on top of it. But with Google Maps, you can do OpenStreetMaps really good. And so So to have the whole world's worth of OpenStreetMap data is 65 gigabytes, which I consider incredibly reasonable amount when we're talking about all of this, being able to, every street in every city. Okay, and what also I was going to show is, okay, there's an OpenStreetMap, so it's a lot like Google, but look, there's a lot of different ways to draw these maps, right? And they provide a lot of different feels. Like, look at this one, because I was thinking, Jesus, stop doing that. This demo sometimes has problems. Here, this one. What's cool? So this is like watercolor, right? So it just looks like a watercolor map, but it's real map data. If you zoom in, you're going to get all the streets. It's not showing any of the names, but it could be. That's awesome. Even the buildings and stuff. Also, there's a lot of people that have free imagery or terrain data. This is fun. This is the whole world map rendered as Spinal Map. It's an ode to Spinal Tap. This map goes to 11, motherfucker. And so the map's nice enough, but also you have free Google, you got free Google Map quality. It's actually a little bit better than a lot of Google Map of the whole Earth now that you're perfectly welcome to use. This is from Esri. I believe you're allowed to have this from Esri. There might be a key and they want to charge you if you make money off of it, whatever. You have access to it. But I wouldn't want this data too much. Maybe one zoomed out to like here where you don't have to deal with the cars. Because I want to create a virtual world inside this map. So that's cool. This one looks nice. Thinking of making some sort of a war game. A war game that teaches good politics through irony. Okay, all right. Nobody's here. What's if Earl came and went? I'm going to smoke a cigarette and do the walk of, is anybody here when I get back? And then probably talk about some other bullshit that I can think of, but I pretty much dumped my brain, so maybe not. And there you go. So if people are having trouble getting in, then put a comment in the live channel. All right. All right, look, you're running out of time. I can see nobody's going to come in, you bastards. All right, but I'm not going to quit yet because I just stopped by on the way upstairs real quick. Give the wife a kiss so you get a little bit of a reprieve. Oh, there she is. No, those fuckers are pretty much done with that. Yeah, it is. One for Instagram. I got an next one for my show. It doesn't matter. That was yesterday. That doesn't matter. Today there was 7 here.
No. We're splitting one.
I get 4. Okay. I just realized why everybody's boycotting the room is because I've been insulting Gary this week, and you guys don't like that because you all love Gary. So I get it. So fine. Bye. Oh, all right. Okay, you guys. Negative 27. Barklord is there. Why don't you guys come the fuck in? Jesus. I'm going to go, but I would rather talk to you, Barklord. We could close the room and not let anybody else in. Negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit. That's crazy. The worst we got was around -8. They said maybe it was colder than that. When I go out and I'm up late, so I saw pretty cold temperatures, 2 in the morning kind of temperatures. The lowest we got was -8. And frankly, now when it comes back up to 34, it's like it's balmy. You want to just run naked through the snow. It's like it's so warm. It's no problem. I like it though, and it's just a little bit of time. But I'm a little spoiled. If I had to go out in the world every day, that would be but I don't. I just stay in my computer room and go out by the lake, throw a rock on the ice. No, but he has been many times, I believe. Gary goes back with those guys. They've been trying to ignore him, and then when they got bored with each other and Captain Awesome had to leave, they all eventually mentioned that they're aware of Gary from the beginning. So no, Pikachu. Pikachu was asking, "Hey, Piero, did you hear about Gary and Mendham getting a mention on the Drunken Peasants with TJ? It's funny, Gary and Mendham. That's what Fake Sagan calls him." Here's what I am, you guys. Here's what I am. This is what I am. It's a picture of me as self-portrait. I'm a beautiful, special snowflake. There's people in the chat, but these guys won't come in because they're mad that I've been bad-mouthing Gary. I mean, that's what I assume it is. Oh, yeah. That would be interesting. I'd watch that. That show is unwatchable, really. I've tried to watch it, but I find it difficult. I mean, I'll have a conversation with people in chat if they don't want to come on, but there's a delay, and thus it makes it really slow going for me. But yeah, I never really followed those guys. If it wasn't for this stuff going between Gary and I found out that Fake Sagan was yet back again and da 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 da. Other than that, I wouldn't be watching or seeing any of the Brett Keane. And well, I would watch Chris Anderson, but I mean, I hadn't heard about him being back. So yeah, he's an interesting creator of internet characters. He's a performance artist. He uses the method acting where he lives the role, but it's still a role. But man, the decline of Paul's ego, that seems like a real thing that Fake Sagan's pointing out. I do vaguely remember him back then. And some of the clips now that people are feeding up, he's fucking nuts. What's going on with those guys? How are they making that sustainable? How much are those guys fucking making? I mean, how much you make on YouTube depends on how much people click, for example, on the video ads, and they have to watch them for a certain amount of time. How much could he be generating that? In other words, his audience has to actually end up buying stuff. They're tracking that. And if they do, then you get paid, a couple dollars for a successful engagement where somebody clicks on the ad and stays there for a while. But I just can't imagine that group is a powerful consumer force. So they're making $100 a video. How is that supporting 4 guys? I don't get it. What is his business model now? Meanwhile, I did notice Cody Weber's making good. Fake Sagan apparently had a falling out with. You do not know the history of Pikachu because there's no way that he had a falling in with Brett. It's just weird, grown up high school games of some sort. From the South Park nerds, because we all knew about Brett Keane over 10 years ago, or at least 10 years ago. So he knew all that. So if anything, he's just using Brett as a, a simple fool. Fake Sagan definitely likes to use this. Well, here's what I really think, but what about this? Why don't you pwn me on these weaknesses? One thing I liked about Fake Sagan recently is he did mention me in his video where I'm so boring, and I don't think he's watched my videos, and that's true, but he does engage in comments and he remembers. And so he said to me, I don't know if you really were Roger's friend. And I'm like, I never said I was Roger, the boring dispatcher's friend. What I said was, after he died, I said to Fake Sagan, may he rest in peace. He was the only one that ever pwned you, which isn't really true. Other people pwned him. So it was a friendly thing to say to him. And also, it was my last attempt at talking to his real character, thinking there was something beneath his performance art character portrayals of his various characters on YouTube. And he said, oh no, he pwned the boring dispatcher so hard he pwned him to death, which I felt was not funny. So evidently he remembers that. Because the boring dispatcher definitely, he owned the internets back in the day because he was untrollable in the world of trolling. He was untrollable. He's a big obese guy. People would come at him with, you're fat. It's like, I got wind of that already. He just did not fucking care. Right before he died, he was turning to some of the philosophical stuff, because all he used to do, and this was great, is watch a video while he's late at night dispatching tow trucks, and he's watch a video and say something about it. And it was always kind of insightful, and there was a humility to it at the same time as a confidence to go ahead and say what you thought. And he was great. And then right before he died, he'd been through all this kind of weird public drama and whatnot, and women and things. And, he just turned to YouTube philosophy, or, more specifically atheism and all the related philosophy, thinking, oh, maybe that'd be a thing to spend his time on. And I was really happy about that, because he did act, kiddish, but he was, in his 20s, just coming on 30. And, there was a certain level of insight and acceptance that he had for the world. Even somebody he's pwning or saying how stupid it was, maybe I'm stupid. I really liked him. And I think in this medium, if sometimes an art form, that we need to grant him a place in our, the Vlogger Hall of Fame. So that was one of there's two major disappointments that made me realize that the character of Hard Case Owns You was just a character, and the artist that created him was not up to snuff with the character he'd created. Happens all the time. Jefferson Airplane, White Rabbit's a great song, better than the band that made it. It happens all the time. So. Yeah, hey Pikachu. So I don't really follow the Drunken Peasants, but I have watched TJ from back in the day, and I don't watch him much the last many years, but when he literally was in his parents' garage. And I do like the format that they have. I think more of us could do that, a format of people and play videos and kind of this. I think there's a lot of potential there for people just watching, pop videos, and people that want to talk, play the Feynman video and discuss, physics or whatever. But so I figured they had something going there, a way to have a regular output, which is really important. Excuse me. And I've seen in the links to Paul's ego just freaking out on Periscope that the Fake Sagan or the Hard Case Owns You pointed me to. So I saw there was tension like that. He's all yelling, but what's it about? I mean, because the only drama I know about that's going on, because I don't know the drama's going on with them, and they kind of always have drama, but is this stuff with Brett Keane and Fake Sagan, and in the Jesus freak thing. So which part of that is causing them to lose viewership? What are people complaining about? That they're pro Jesus freak, or? And that's another thing I don't get at all. So these guys are all friends with Jesus freak and pro Jesus freak. How did that happen? What's that? I mean, I missed 5 years of that coming about. What? I don't understand why all those old school YouTube atheists aren't jumping on the message that Gary's got. That isn't that what they normally do? I mean, a theist comes to atheists for help, and you would go, "Well, you're stupid. Why don't you ask your God for help?" But they're not doing that. Maybe that's a good thing. But then again, the reality is, looks a little scammy to me. The only thing about it that wouldn't be a scam is it's just so ludicrous. Why would anybody think of that as the scam? Why not have your daughter have cancer or something? That would, huh? I see. Well, I have to be honest. I don't see the upfall of it. I made a little song to Snake Plisskenist at one point that kind of has my attitude on this. But low watt fame. Uh, the words in that song are low watt fame just keep you running. And to me, fame is obviously a big negative emotionally for most people, not enjoyable unless you're making money off of it. And then you could go, well, you got your haters, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not making any money and all you got is the hate, and you got love, people that love you too and go, hey, we love you, support, but no, we're not going to pay your rent, then, it's a pretty negative thing. So how much are these guys making? Because see, if you have a Smosh and 1 million subscribers, those people are clicking and buying shit, those kids. And then you get a piece of that basically. But these guys, I guess they're probably buying video games and stuff, but there's definitely some marketability of any audience, but it does not seem like the super lucrative one. Like if you make videos telling people how to calculate mortgages and then you get ads for mortgage people, well, mortgage companies for an engagement might pay you $5 or $10 for somebody to click through and engage on that. People selling USB sticks on eBay, they're going to give you 20 cents. So it just seems like I don't see how their business model of their particular brand is shit, because it doesn't matter how many people watch you. And also, what's going on with his subscribers? Why is there 1 million subscribers and then I'm watching an old video, an older, days old video, and there's 50,000, 30,000, maybe 80,000, even 100,000? It seems like a very weak audience, and thus. Oh, really? So he's saying that they got the Drunken Peasants channel got DMCA'd twice, so it's shut down the channel. Okay, yeah, that would be a problem. But then people start complaining, but that's funny. But yeah, those could be related. So he also, or Pikachu says that he also, it doesn't have intellectual substance. TJ, well, no, that they don't in the Drunken Peasants. And that's the part I missed because I didn't really watch. I haven't really followed when they started it. I've watched a little, and it's like I cannot get more than 5 or 10 minutes before it's like, meh, I can't wait for the stuff. And I always felt that way. But granted, I didn't really look. So you're saying there was intellectual substance in the past? I see. Is that why it's like that? Yeah. Well, anyway, you guys, okay, you've had your chances to come in. I'm going to go play some Minecraft or something probably, or maybe play with PostGIS, or maybe I'll work on this document composition system for JavaScript that I've been working on, or maybe I'll play Sauerbrunn because that's awesome. And this is the angle of my room that you see now, because my laptop is now over here, and this is my new computer. I think I need maybe a bigger monitor for it. And I moved my laser printer over. Laser printer, you guys, they're gotten quite cheap. Cheaper than dot matrix if you take into account how long it lasts and how long the ink lasts. Yeah, I pay $70 for my ink cartridge, but it's not a scam. It'll print 10,000 pages. It lasts, almost 2 years. And I just print 50 and 100 page documents whenever I want, because this thing can print out 50, 60 pages in just a minute or so. It's totally almost the cheapest HP laser printer. So, gotta get a laser printer. And so we're looking, this is the way I normally work. Like, this is my current machine I'm still using. So I look out, that's the lake side. And so there's 2 screens over here you can't see. This one and then this one. And this is my Windows machine. And then this is Ubuntu 16.04, and that's Ubuntu 16.04. And I don't get hard drives anymore with platters. I get SSD drives because, frankly, yeah, they're 4 times more expensive, but that just means that I can get a terabyte drive that I'll never fill up for the same price as a 256 megabyte drive or gigabyte that boots like this. It's so fast and great. And on the other hand, now that I'm working this geodata, like I said, I just downloaded like 40, 50 gigabytes of geodata. And so, but I might buy an external drive for that. It's still quite nice to have your main drive be on SSD because it's so much fucking faster. You can't believe it. And it's not just faster, it's the way it works makes it faster. Like, so for example, if you want to get the middle of a file or something, you're just, some things you can do with a file, going through a file where the hard drive would be like, right? And they have caching systems to avoid that. But still, if you're really working with a lot of data, you can have that. Whereas with the SSD, it doesn't have to do any of that. There's no sending a physical magnet head around to the right place while it spins underneath and finds out, oh, here it is, and then pulls the data. It's just like, no, it's like getting data out of, it's like taking the mail out of a bunch of mailboxes on a wall. It's like, oh, I want this one and this one and this one. There is no spinning. So, for example, an example of this is if you were making a video server with regular drive. It's really hard for the hard drive to keep up when you're streaming more than one video because it wants to stay on this track, but then it's like, oh, I got to get some data for the other person. The hard drive actually has to go and get that person's data, and then missed it, spins around, got it. It's doing all this stuff underneath the hood in the driver and in the device. And so, if you start streaming 10 or 15 off the same hard drive, that's a problem. You've got to put them on RAID. You got to duplicate them, have redundancy. Whereas with an SSD, it doesn't really matter because the SSD would just as soon get the next sector from the current video as go grab one from this video. So it can go back and forth with there's not a physical little lever item that has to be put somewhere. It just goes and gets the data. So you got to get the SSD data. See what else? A total brain dump. Well, my office is now rearranged in a good way, but it's just also just stuff is just strewn all the fuck over. It's terrible. So that's another thing I might more likely do than play Minecraft. All right. Bye, everybody.